It's WG, bring you SNB. It's time for the second fight of Restless Spirit 1. Firstborn Sheila. So, Restless Spirit 1, Firstborn Sheila. Let's go. Alright, so now let's talk about the boss and mechanics. So, main mechanic number 1 is she summons 3 nests. These nests charge up, and if you cannot kill the nest within 15 seconds, it deals magic damage and also summons these bugs. The bugs in the first phase or going to phase 1 are decent. You can let those survive, but you also really don't want that. But going after the phase swap, these bugs, they're gonna kill you. They're gonna wreck you, they're going to kill your units, and you're going to lose. You don't really want that to happen, and you also get inflicted with blight. So big no-no, which means you need either big AoE or single target bounce damage in, for example, Lamia, to deal with these eggs. So you want to deal with the eggs, that's what you need to look out for. Then you have the second ability, which is the Plague Rod. At certain intervals, she's just going to start covering the field, she's going to start screaming, and she's going to summon a bunch of little insects. And these insects are going to surround your units. Most likely they're going to just stay in front of your tank, and they're going to accumulate up to 15. If you kill a hatchling, she summons another one. If you kill another one, she summons another one. So no matter how many hatchlings you kill, if the ability is active, they will always fill back up to 15. And that's where, to a degree, the secret lies. And that is, you just let them fill up to 15, wait the ability out, and when the ability ends, that is when you bring in a big AoE or, for example, a big burst damage, whatever you have, to just get rid of them in one swoop, or better said, within like that 2-second period after the skill ends. You see if any hatchlings remain when the skill ends. So rather than waste a whole bunch of blood trying to get rid of them quickly, you just let them all accumulate to 15, skill ends, and then you get rid of them. And then also there's something that I don't think is actually, okay, it is specified here, Rough House. So what I like to call Rough House is Space Laser. It is a huge amount of single target damage that targets a specific unit and also a bit of AoE, but it mostly is a whole bunch of single target damage, and you need to be aware of that and potentially have to use a healer ability or even most likely a healer ability to make sure that you don't get wiped by that. So that is her basic moveset. That's the basics. Let's talk about the team comps. Alright, so here we are for the tier list for this fight. And as you notice, there really isn't a whole lot of people on here because of the difficulty to like find fitting units. Like there isn't really a lot of characters that fit them all. Preferably you want magic damage and you also want AoE, but to a degree you also want, you could say, single target aspects, but it's a bit hard to judge. We'll obviously go over the specifics, but first off, the main way you deal with this fight is in 2 different strategies. Number 1, you go in, you clear out the first phase, you get to the phase transition, you beat the phase transition, and then she's going to go into like an enraged sword mode. During that enraged sword mode, she does a whole bunch of damage, and you can target the sword. If you target the sword with an ability and you destroy the sword, you enter into phase 2. What phase 2 does is you're going to get the same abilities she's been using before, but just stronger. So she's going to summon stronger eggs, and she's also going to be summoning a stronger wave of swarming enemies that are then going to need more damage to be killed. And that's where the trouble comes in, because those scale really, really highly. It is really hard to kill those, and it is actually better to not destroy the sword and stay in the pre-phase, or better said, in the sword form, and just damage the boss naturally in the sword form rather than destroy the sword. But those are like the 2 approaches. The more normal one, where you actually destroy the sword the way it's meant to be played, and then the approach that I also personally prefer, which is just killing the boss without doing the phase transition, because killing these eggs, it takes a lot of damage. Alright. So, without further ado, let's talk about the rest. We have Acapella, she's here as a buffer, she's here as a healer, and you're going to be needing her. Lamia is our single target / also bounce damage dealer, so she can deal with the 3 eggs, or she can at least tap everyone once and weaken them for your AoE unit to take care of. And you can also use Lamia to target the sword if that's something you desire, because with her bounce healing, she's going to hit the sword. Then we have Lemine, the ability to get more Blood Frenzy, meaning you get more Blood Soul recovery, big AoE damage, huge magic damage, big burst, can work out really, really well. and is kind of needed for like that big damage if you want to realistically normally get to phase 9. Once again, keep in mind this fight is for 15-8. Like, unless you've already made it into chapter 15 or at least like halfway through chapter 14, don't expect to get anywhere close to like 8 or 9 fragments. Starry-Eyed Aeona and Seth, either of them works, and I think as far as I can tell, based on the sword phase, Seth is going to be better than a Starry-Eyed Aeona because you can do the cleansing, you can get rid of the debuffs, while Starry-Eyed Aeona just provides you like a whole bunch of shields and some extra healing. But both of them should work perfectly well. And then we have Van Helsing and T.R. Harty, who only specifically work in the strategy where you never leave the pre-phase towards phase 2, where you never leave the sword mode. Otherwise they're not going to do a whole bunch, because you can use their damage, their single target damage, to attack the boss without killing the sword. And then we have Bella as one of our primary tanks. I guess you could also be using Friedrich instead, or potentially even a Theophane if you want to split some damage, but that's whatever. And then we have Agaris, who has the Agaris and Thibault, who also have AoE magic damage, which can help you deal with the X, deal some damage to the boss. Agaris, who can be quite useful if you want to destroy the sword, because he has this like targeting beam, which you can just aim on the sword. And then we have Darcias for some AoE damage against the X, against the boss. Noah, who can also work for some AoE damage, but again, wrong damage type. Cecia, the issue with Cecia is you're looking for burst AoE rather than sustained AoE. So Cecia is a bit of a disadvantage, where for when you get swamped by these enemies in the face, rather than be able to kill them within the 2-second window, you're pretty much going to struggle with the Cecia. Kayn can actually work AoE magic damage, I guess. Octavia can be nice, right damage type, can keep herself alive. And then Triss also, again, if you want to try and kill the sword. Alright, so here we are for strategy 2, which is the sword survival strategy. And we have pretty much a similar setup in a Starry-Eyed, in a a cappella. We have a Friedrich as our tank, so that we can also cycle rather cheaply with the New Moon, not with Bella. Bella would be 5 cost, so that's why we have a Friedrich instead. And then we have a Van Helsing and a Lamia to deal damage during the sword phase. Overall survivability here is king though, because we're going to be taking a lot of damage. So once we just give ourselves the extra blood soul recovery, we just heal everybody else up. We start off with our first Starry-Eyed ult, and then for these X we have a Lamia. If your Lamia cannot one-shot these and leaves like 1 or 2 open, it's not too bad. These first ones really aren't the problem. No problem are gonna be the later ones. So right here we just keep everybody the way it is. We wait this out a bit so that Van Helsing just doesn't end up killing every one of them too fast, so that there's not too many spawning. And then we use a Lamia for cleanup to kind of get rid of those. And then we have these X right here. These are definitely ones we want to get rid of. Especially make sure no X are alive when you transition into the next phase. If you transition into the next phase and the X then actually become the empowered phase 2 egg versions, and those, they're just going to do way too much damage. They're pretty much going to crush you. So make sure that does not happen. And then right here, it's pretty much just going to be us, to a degree, you could say, ult spamming. So we're most likely just going to be here ult spamming for the most part, getting Van Helsing's ult ready and just starting to damage the boss. So we're going to hold the Starry-Eyed ults for when the boss does like a suspicious move. So for example, you see the sword glowing, this is a big damage move. So here we transform, so we split the damage, so we take less damage. And then once again a cappella for healing. We let everything else charge up. We wait once more until the boss does a suspicious looking attack. So they just generally look more powerful, right? So you see how the sword, and this shouldn't be an empowered one. There you go. You see how she like drags it a bit more. That is your call to then use your healing abilities, because those are the ability, or the displacement ability or cleansing abilities, because that is the one that truly hits really hard. So once more here, after this one should be again an empowered one. Let's see. Nope. There you go. You really see like this charge up, so you really want to make sure you take care of that. And then it's, you see it's us just taking care of the boss. And in comparison to the other strategy, this is, in my opinion, just the more realistic for most of you, because also even if you don't kill the boss, you are currently always building up fragments, building and building and building and building up fragments for this stage. So there you go, this is how you can clear Sheila. Damage capability wise, you see we have most of the damage on Van Helsing and then obviously some damage on Lamia, with everybody else doing pretty much no damage. Alright, so here we are for the first strategy, which I'll just refer to as the standard strategy. Keep in mind, once again, 15-8 is when you unlock the next boss, so there's no real expectation on you getting anywhere close to 9 fragments even. But for us, we're bringing Lamia for single target and also help with the eggs. Lamine for some incredible AoE magic damage, as well as the extra blood frenzy, Acapella for blood soul recovery and buffs, Stereo Leona to keep Acapella and everybody else alive, as well as Bella, so we can use the artifact and yeah, get the maximum benefit there. So let's go into the fight right here. Let's start it off. We're going to be playing the first part on 2x speed because it's not as important, or better said, you can technically play the whole fight on 2x speed. Once the boss starts glowing suspiciously like that, that is your call to use a healer ability or the like, because that's the space laser, and the space laser can very well wipe some of you out. So here's 2 outcomes. Outcome number 1, your AoE magic damage is strong enough to kill the X in 1 hit, or outcome number 2, you have to weaken them with a secondary source of AoE damage. For us, we can just use our Lamine to kill it, but there's no shame in, for example, also using a Lamia to actually get through this. So right here for us, we'll actually get some damage. You've seen it again, right? The space laser. So here we have the phase where all these things kind of just accumulate. And if you're wondering, oh, who could you replace Lamine with? You can obviously replace her with the Dicarlo relatively easily. So right here, we just wait for this phase, and then the phase ends, and we try to get rid of all of them before they explode in our face. If like 1 or 2 survive, that's still fine. In the second phase, this would by far be a bigger problem. Once more, there's a phase of X, and we can just use Lamine to take care of them, and also push some extra single target damage with Lamia, as well as keep ourselves all a bit in shape, get that health back up. And then here we are in the sword phase transition, and we're actually going to play the fight normally. And what that revolves in is, you see how there's 2 different entities to target. You can target the boss itself, for example, depending on if you have a single target ability or whatever you have. Like if it's an ability, you can auto aim, preferably single target ability, or Lamia's ability, you see you have target 1, and then there's the sword. So what you want to look for is the fact that you're targeting the sword, so you have like the eye on the sword, and then it's pretty much going to do a bit of auto magic, because otherwise realistically you're not going to be able to hit the sword. Depending on how strong your Lamia is or how weak your Lamia is, for me, especially over the last couple of days, it took anywhere between like 1 to 5 ultimates to get this going. But yeah, you want to break the sword, because otherwise this phase just deals a whole bunch of damage. So now we're in the empowered phase, and as we already talked about, these things are going to start to become a real problem. We're again going to move everybody back, start gathering them all up. And you do need a certain level of damage, otherwise these things are just going to explode in your face and it's going to be GG, game over, try again. So right here we're going to use our Lamine, take care of everyone at the same time, as well as also start working on these eggs, because once they hatch we have a real problem. So that's not something we actually want to happen. From now on, it's again us pretty much just saving up blood to prepare for unexpected scenarios. So we always try to have like an extra bit of blood, for example, for extra healing against space lasers or against these eggs. So once more we weaken them with our Lamia, get rid of them with our Lamine, and here we again hold up, wait for all of them together. And then try to get rid of all of them in one swoop. You see how they're also already damaged from the ability just from existing on the field. which helps you quite a bit with actually getting through this. And then the rest is pretty much just us again, hopefully being able to take care of these eggs. Or you see, at least trying it, at least attempting it, giving it another one. And then obviously pulling everybody again in the middle. One issue or one benefit of Lamine is obviously the fact that you'll be able to get both. And here you can see we focused too much on dealing with the gimmicks rather than actually dealing with the boss, which is why we didn't end up killing the boss.